You hear? Yeah.
All right. Well, it's 6:30. Let's get we'll get us started, and we'll. Uh, so thank you everybody for joining us tonight to talk about digital transformation. I think I know most people, but just in case, my name is David Sweet, Managing Director at Focus Core. Just to start off with a disclaimer: the opinions expressed by the presenters are their own and do not reflect Coca-Cola Bottlers Japan, the Coca-Cola Company, McDonald's Japan, British American Tobacco, or any affiliate companies. Got that in there. All right, panelist introduction. First will be Rafael Mazoyor. I always screw that up. Did I say that right? Yeah.
Good enough.
I need an umlaut in there. He's the VP of Digital Marketing for McDonald's. He's been practicing digital professionally since 1996, going back a ways. And politics and nonprofits, agencies, startups, and corporate across such cool industries as weather forecasting, sporting goods, travel, and mobile gaming. He set up a global digital marketing function at ASICS, which is when we first met, and he launched direct to consumer e-commerce. At McDonald's Japan, he's deploying digital culture in a very favorable context. Consumers love the brand, and they operate the country's #1 most used brick and mortar app, which supports mobile users since the end of March. We also have Mario
Mobile
Graham,
orders.
who is a digital nerd since 1994, when first connected to the internet with Windows 95 Beta. Wow.
Yeah.
He graduated
I'm
in
that
computer graduated in computer graphics and an MBA from Erasmus University in Rotterdam, and digital business since 2010. He's worked 4 years at software as a service, then moved over to e-commerce for the last 7 years. Prior to British American Tobacco, he managed e-payments from the payments provider side of ANA, DHL, and to Checkout, among others. And he successfully launched his first omni-channel project in 2016. And he's spending his off time right now watching the NBA playing in their bubble, or his PlayStation. I'm not sure which. And last but not least, we have Terry Sapaz-Salas, who is the VP. I had your title there.
No worries. It's like division head.
Division head of.
Everyone has their own title.
Yeah. Okay. So you started off in academia, and then joined McKinsey for more than 10 years, where you were helping national players digitalize their classified ads and create an online newspaper, which was a first kind of project for you. After a successful career in marketing, sales strategy, mainly in retail industry at McKinsey, he joined Coca-Cola Bottlers Japan, Coca-Cola's #3 bottler in the world. And he's there to help them grow their revenue. Last year, getting back to his first love, he launched a new division aiming to incubate new business models and then accelerate innovation and digital transformation, collaborating on many parts of the business, including e-commerce, Coke on VM proprietary app, and Costa, to help make Coca-Cola even more digital. So welcome, gentlemen. We're going to have the three speakers. Each will have about 15 minutes. We'll have a Q&A at the end, and also in the middle, we'll do a poll. So without further ado, Rafael, go ahead and take over for us.
Thanks, David. And I really appreciate the opportunity to address some of our peers here in Tokyo. This is an interesting time, obviously, with the virus changing our lives and changing the way consumers behave. There's a lot going on, and to talk about digitalization, you need to think about the short term and the long term. The virus is important in the short term in that it changes how consumers decide to engage with brands and just literally how daily life happens. But you also need to think about long-term investments before this session started, we were chatting about how long it takes to get anything done with our data stacks and our technology that powers all of these experiences. And you really need to have this sort of foresight to get things moving in the right direction and actually achieving some results. So what I'd like to do tonight is to share a couple of insights that I've picked up along the way, and that have helped me sort of make progress on bringing those experiences to the market here in Japan. And perhaps that'll help people have a little bit of success in a market that's really interesting, that has been digital for many, many years, with a lot of innovations that have happened here. So I come from France, the country that was proud of its Minitel. And I'm mentioning Minitel because it is one of those digital experiences that have no immediate relevance to today's world, but did actually create a number of consumer behaviors. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it was a dumb terminal that the post office would lend to you or rent to you, and that you had in your home. You'd dial up to servers, and it would provide you with a text interface to various services. Phone book, the train reservations system, a lot of porn as well, which made vast amounts of money. We've actually got a number of tycoons in France right now whose entire mountain of assets comes from doing porn on the Minitel. Text-based, I'm just saying. But the technology has not endured. The behaviors have, however. People, consumers, citizens are trying to do certain things, book trains, plan holidays, reserve appointments. They're trying to transact. And I think that the first element I really want to flag is that any kind of digital transformation is going to be based on a certain empathy that we as professionals are going to have for the behaviors that consumers want to have. You can't really create new behaviors. You just get out of the way in the right places so that those behaviors actually happen. And in order for that to happen, you need to have an ear open to what people actually want to do. So this empathy is very much for me a starting point. And whether it's an old system like the Minitel or the app ecosystem that Apple and Google are fostering nowadays, the technology is only there to enable something that people are actually doing. The second element that I want to talk about is the brand. We, the three of us here, work for pretty large brands. Well, Mario, you're working for a collection of brands. Actually, Terry, you as well. In a way, each of your products is a brand. I work for a company that's struggled to maintain anything else than a single brand. Every time we've attempted that, it didn't really work out for us. We're really invested in this one very large, very meaningful brand. And the second thing after empathy that I feel I've needed to do is to really understand what that brand means to people and how it needs to act, what actions it needs to enable. And it's extremely simple. McDonald's needs to enable transactions. People come to McDonald's to have a meal. And I can do all sorts of things and offer all sorts of fancy digital experiences, but the bottom line is, if I'm not supporting the basic unit of relation that consumers have with my brand, I'm not doing my job. And that basic unit is, there's going to be money sliding this side of the counter. There's going to be a burger and fries and a Coke, probably, sliding on the other side. or in the other direction. And really, it's that basic unit that any digital work needs to support. Of course, I can add things on top and storytelling and loyalty elements, and collect points and collect stamps, and um, there's a huge amount of work to be done with the concept of collections, actually, with um, uh, Happy Meals. We're the world's biggest distributor of toys through Happy Meals, and people collect them. Children collect them. Parents collect them. So there's all sorts of things that digital can do to support additional behaviors. But the heart of it, if you're not supporting this one transactional unit that defines your brand, you're off base. The third element that I want to talk about, I asked you to mention digital culture in the introduction, and the key element I see, and I'm sure that Mary and Terry will have concurring points of view. I would assume it's the idea of being iterative. And I think that for me, coming from a pretty mixed background back into corporate life a year ago, this is the thing that surprised me the most. It's the sense that most of the projects that we typically do are seen as a sort of fairly linear effort that results in a product being brought to market. And once you've done that, you're done. Your product is in the market. And that does not align very well with one of my core beliefs, which is that bringing it to market is just the starting line. The work really starts then with iterations that will get you the type of performance that you want. And I think very highly of myself. Don't get me wrong. I think I'm very smart. I have a lot of experience. I've been for however many years in this market. But I don't think I know what the product needs to be, not right away. I'm not that smart. I don't have that much experience. Nobody does. And I think that what you do when you bring a product to market is that you start making a transactional environment possible. You start being able to gather data. You start being able to make new decisions based on this data. And only because you've got this are you able to refine your product. And this trickles into team structure, it trickles into project management approaches, it trickles into reporting, it trickles into budgeting, where all of what we do is sort of building up to this sort of cliff. And then everybody goes home, we're done. Oh, e-commerce is live. Well, it doesn't work that way. And I think that if you take together those three elements, this sort of sense of empathy for your consumers, the brand positioning, and figuring out exactly what your brand needs to do for the consumers. And then this sense that once you've got a product in the market, you can now start doing your job of iterating and improving the performance and getting it to the right level. That's when you start seeing a little bit how digital works. Now, that's my introduction. But the question you've asked us is, how do you drive digital transformation in business? And those three elements I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of work to bring colleagues on board. And I think that what I'd like to share tonight is a sense of hope that some of us have already made some headway. There's generally a very, very strong sense in the market that there are expectations for digital to deliver a certain level of growth and progress and innovation. But I think there's also a strong sense that consumers are willing to play ball as well. And what I've found really helpful is when you're able to size your projects in such a way that the moment when you make the pitch, And the moment when you start having results, when you start demonstrating traction, if that time period can be short enough that your stakeholders have not forgotten the initial pitch, I think that's one of the keys to getting the sense of actual delivery. So the sort of sense I want to give to the people in the audience, if anyone's listening to this, is the sense that finding allies in the organization is really important. Convincing people not just by beating them over the head with the truth, because we know, but actually listening to them, and in fact turning this empathy that I was talking about for consumers, turning it into an internal tool as well, and sort of understanding what are our colleagues trying to achieve and how can we help them, how can we enhance their work. The reason I'm mentioning this is perhaps more than in any other job I've had before, I've come to realize that my work at McDonald's absolutely has to interface with what is being done in the restaurants. I've been in positions before where either when I was in gaming or in travel, 100% of my work was digital and it was legitimate. The travel industry has done a fantastic job of creating essentially APIs into their actual delivery of a service, a hotel room or a flight. Travel agencies can operate 100% in digital space. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but basically, at McDonald's, if my work doesn't actually interface with the crew that are making your food, that are keeping the restaurant clean, my work doesn't matter. And so to come back to my starting point, this empathy for my colleagues is also an absolute key in ensuring that my work doesn't live in an abstract world outside, but actually takes root in the actual execution of the business. And I think that what I've been most encouraged by is when you start seeing crew members giving us advice on how digital should be run, because they see every day with empathy how consumers are trying to use it. And all of a sudden, they're starting to be able to actually have a really, really strong input into what we're doing. We've set the stage, we've built the systems, we've brought the experiences to consumers, but they're running those experiences, they're operating those experiences every day in the restaurants. And I guess that's been my sort of privilege, seeing this come back with actual crew members giving us advice, really, really encouraging and sort of making all of the effort worth it. So that was my 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
That's really good, Raphael. I like those 3 points. I especially like the empathy. That's excellent. And that one of the questions that was asked was, and I think kind of bounces off this, is how do you balance between offering the on-site experience at the physical store and the delivery take-home service?
Well, thankfully, this is not me expressing the view of my organization. This is just my personal view. It's a bit of a difficult point right now. Right now, we have 2 separate apps based on internal realities, political difficulties, various expediencies that happen at various times in the history of McDonald's. And the reality is that right now, it looks like 2 different businesses. Look and feel is different, language is different, the whole interface is different. It's a shame. It's a shame. And it's clearly not demonstrating a lot of empathy for our consumers. I am asking you, Mr. Consumer, to make the choice between two completely different experiences, two different apps, before you've really figured out how you want to interact with us. It's not great. We'll fix it. We're working on fixing it. But I think this is a symptom of how internal realities and what's tough to actually pull off from a technical operational perspective can have an impact on your consumers. And I'm seeing a question from James, but I think it'll be good for all of us to. Okay,
we'll get those
so
at the end.
We'll get back to that.
Yep, great. Thank you. Yeah, if you have questions, feel free to pop those in the chat. Thank you, Rafael. Mario, you're up.
Yes. I mean, I should have spoken first because I don't think I can be as inspirational as Rafael was, but there are actually a few points I would like to piggyback on rather than going through the plan that I had, because he mentioned some things that really interest me, some things that really resonate with me, so I will pick them up along the way. But basically, you know, the first thing I would like to talk about is what's with tobacco in the digital world, and how is my company reacting into this so-called new normal. So, you know, I joined my company like 1.5 years ago. As a non-smoker, the thing I was seriously into was the challenge, because I studied a little British American Tobacco and the other tobacco companies, and before joining, right? And there were so many things that fascinated me. Number one, that's a kind of business that cannot talk to the consumer the traditional way. So Terry and Rafael can show their products, can pitch their products by saying the benefits of those products, right? While with tobacco, there are so many limitations, all right limitations given by the legislator, but not only by the legislator, also by Google, by Facebook, by Twitter, right? So many times when a colleague comes to me and say, Mario, can we say this on the website? Can we say this on social media? I always recommend them, don't talk to the lawyers, because the lawyers will tell you what the law says, but go check out Facebook and see their policies. Go check out Google and see their policies, because, for example, you go on Facebook, and it's open information, so I'm not revealing any secrets, and you check for advertising tobacco, and they show you 2 images. So I can show you a pack of cigarettes and tell you, don't smoke it. I cannot show you a pack of cigarettes and say smoke, right? Or give you the, let's say, the details of the product. I don't want to say the benefits or whatever, just the details of the product. You cannot say anything. You cannot show the product. And this is, it was fascinating to me at first, right? So when I first joined, there were many things that were sort of, you know, patched and, you know, copy pasted from other divisions. And there were all those agencies that we used to work with and we still work with that had those, let's say, traditional media people converted to digital experts, right? And then they were tossing like a couple of 20-year-olds and selling them as, social media experts. They're not, obviously. I mean, you know, to each one its own. So at the end, the challenge like 1.5 years ago was, how do I convey a message about a product that cannot be shown properly? In most cases, you cannot even show the logo now, right? So if you go to some of our websites, I work on 5 websites, you don't see the logo. You don't know what the website is about. The only difference is on tobacco heating technology, the so-called devices, right? So in this case, you can show them. You can even sell them up to a certain point with, let's say, with a little more freedom. So Rakuten is selling those, Amazon is selling those. Of course, they're like tiny brick and mortar shops selling them. But that was my challenge 1.5 years ago. My challenge now is, how do I deal with an extended team, cross-country, cross-region through Microsoft Teams app, right? And we worked a lot on that, especially because the way that the meetings in a Japanese company are run, and I'm sure Terry Rafael have the same experience. you have like 50 people going into a room and one of them talking, right? The others may pretend to do something. That's the Japanese way, I understand, because traditional Japanese companies want to show that they care about you as a client, which I like up to a certain extent. But right now, you have those gigantic Microsoft Teams calls with, you see like 20 people logged in and nobody talks, right? So you start pinpointing a few elements that you want to optimize and you work on those. So I started working with my colleagues and across the globe. I mean, it's not just Japan. We work a lot with the region and even the UK. And we started like trimming off a few people from the calls, reducing the amount of people you invite to certain calls, especially when we told third parties, right? And then see how the company supports you, because right now we are all in remote, right? I mean, except a few key roles that cannot, like trade or supply chain. Obviously, they need to follow different arrangements. But the larger part of the company now is has been working remotely since March, basically, except a few intervals, few in between. So we didn't see any drop in production, honestly. We've been doing pretty well. And we can see now that the company is more oriented into true smart working. So not the so-called telework, which is, I'm Italian, and in Italy still people don't understand the difference. Telework is you work 9 to 6, right? You can work from home, you can work from the office. That's telework. Smart working is giving empowering your employees, empowering your colleagues into working. I don't want to say always on because it can be tricky, but into working into a more dynamic environment. And obviously, after a certain hour, I don't pick up my company phone anymore. But I can see that all the regions wake up after us, right? Because we start here in Asia Pacific, and they pick up a few points along the way, and you can see that the entire conversation was done through digital channels. We sort of removed the emails. We started working on obviously Microsoft Teams, as I mentioned, but we work a lot with project management tools, Jira, Trello, name one. We work with them, and also this way you can streamline the process, and you can see that smart working is efficient. Myself personally, I work in bursts, so I do 90 minutes like straight. Don't check the emails, don't pick up my phone, nothing. I do it. After I'm done, I can relax for a few minutes, or I can walk the next room and just have a Red Bull or Tio Vita, whatever my wife picks up for me, and all those things have been helping not only myself but also my company throughout this period. And I'm pretty positive that most of these learnings, not some, most of these learnings will stay and will help us deliver, the next round of improvements. Another thing that I'm sure that also Rafael and Terry have seen, since the beginning of the pandemic, talking like mid-March, basically, I think like the very last working day in Tokyo was the 12th of March. Profiles like mine have become really hot in the job market. Of course, I'm still here at BAT, right? But I've seen that there was a spike in interest in companies that, unlike my own, woke up one day and say, "Oh, we don't have anything on digital. We don't sell anything online." I've spoken to a few people, and they told me, "Well, we're thinking about building a Facebook page. What do you think? What do you need it for?" Right? It's not that since we are in a pandemic right now, you wake up one day and you want to have all digital. No, you should understand what your business is about, and then pick the tools that you need. For example, as a tobacco company, we cannot do anything on Twitter. Zero. The only thing we can do, because Twitter is very strict, right? So the only thing we can do is consumer support. Cool. We work with that. We move forward. But as a brand new, let's say, as a traditional company, jumping into digital, and you wake up one day, you want to have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Line, Reddit, Pinterest, name one, right? You need to have a plan. Plus, you don't build the online shop in one sec. So you need to have some time to build the online shop. So how do you build it? So this is another aspect that we've been working on, and by constant improvements, we are making it more seamless for the consumer. Because to piggyback on one of the points that Rafael mentioned, and David, by the way, please ping me when I'm done with my 15 minutes. As especially this works for all businesses, right? In the moment that a consumer lands on your website with the intention to purchase, you need to drive the consumer straight to the checkout. Have the consumer purchase as soon as you can without further distractions. You don't bounce the consumer to a product detail page. You don't bounce the consumer to subscription. You lead the consumer straight to the purchase, then you engage the consumer. So one thing that we've been working on right now is improving the process, because especially as a tobacco company with so many limitations, so when a consumer finally lands on our online store, we need to make sure that the consumer makes a purchase. And all these improvements, right, here and there, helped us be completely I don't want to say digitally optimized, that would sound cocky, but I would say digitally savvy, right? And this doesn't all obviously apply also to me, because as an early nerd, I've been a digital native my whole life. But we've been working also with supporting some colleagues into getting into digital, so I don't need to explain them every single time what is click-through rate. They should have an idea. I don't want to say that they need to tell me what it is, but this helps also driving the KPIs. This helps also driving expectations, because we need to make sure that if we have a plan, then the plan needs to be, we need to be in the position to deliver the plan. And I will simply close right now saying that what Rafael mentioned also was totally correct in my view. So 2 apps, I don't see why McDonald's has 2 apps, right? It should be 1. However, and I'm also very, I'm pretty positive that he has made the right pitch to his extended team. However, this is one of the examples that should help us understand that digital savviness is not something that is, found throughout the company, but this is something that people like me, Terry, and Rafael, and some others in this webinar should, lead your colleagues to.
That's great. Great.
Are we done with the 15 minutes?
We're good, Mario. Perfect.
Okay.
One of
Thank you.
the questions, and I think so, you were touching on, regulatory and government agencies kind of helping, yes, or slowing down things. But how do you see the digital challenges in Japan versus the rest of the world with tobacco?
It's radically different. It's radically different, and this is something that comes up very often during my calls with the extended team. For example, in the UK, British American Tobacco, it's a British company, by the way. Most people think it's American, it's not. So, for example, we have an oral tobacco product here in Japan. We cannot show it. We cannot say even the name. We cannot show the logo. We cannot do anything. So our biggest effort is into converting those users into logged in users, age verified users, so we can show the product. You go to the same product in the UK, they can show the the items themselves. They can talk about it. They can say the benefits. They can say the details, and blah blah blah. So a conversation that I have very often with the extended team is, yes, whatever solution they try to push on me, yes, but this doesn't work here, right? And as people living in Japan for a while, I'm pretty sure that each one of us have been exposed to, yeah, but this doesn't work in Japan.
Yeah.
But for some things, it actually is the absolute truth, because regulations here are stricter. I don't want to say they are better or worse. I'm just going to say they're stricter. And companies really into global solutions. I personally hate it, but it depends company to company. So companies trying to push the global digital solutions should be aware of not only the legislator, as I said, but also the company policies that may also change from country to country. So I'm pretty positive, honestly, that I don't know if they have Facebook in Saudi Arabia, But if there is, I don't think that they're going to restrict tobacco. Just
Thank you, Mario. So what
my pleasure. Thank you.
I'd like to do is I'm going to launch a quick poll, and then I'll give the results at the end. So if everybody could take a moment, you should be able to see the polls there. There's 3 questions. We got some votes coming in.
Chat box, so keep them coming. Hopefully we'll have a few minutes at the end to tackle them. Some tough ones too, actually.
I got two as well. So I will leave it to you, David, for allocating the time for answering those.
Great. Got give about 30 more seconds. We got almost 75% of people have answered. It's great.
I just want to point out there's pretty serious beard action on the screen right now.
I thought that was one of the polls, honestly.
You get to vote for which beard is.
Yeah, I think David got the edge here. I don't know about you, Rafael, but I will be lagging behind. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna close the poll now. And share those results and take a look. So it looks like your organization were the top digital goals. Looks like 66% said improving customer experience. Yeah. So what you were talking about, Raphael. How do you see digital transformation of your organization in Japan compared to the globe? So Japan's keeping up, which is good to hear. And final, what's the biggest barrier to becoming a truly digital business? Skills gap. Interesting. Those are great. All right, Terry, please jump in and share us your wisdom.
I don't know if I have nothing more to share. I mean, those 2 gentlemen did the job. I mean, I think I'm good to go. Let me try to build on what Rafael and Mario were saying today. And I'm a little bit more academic than those 2 gentlemen were like so good in speaking, like the French and the Italian, the mastering the art of like rhetoric with the hand on one side. But so let me kind of like quickly share my screen. I don't want to. Maybe just one small introduction. I mean, unlike those 2 gentlemen, I don't own a brand. Actually, I'm working for Coca-Cola Bottler Japan. So I think it's quite important for people to actually understand the difference. There is on one side the Coca-Cola system. The Coca-Cola system is organized around a franchisee and a franchisor. The franchisor is the Coca-Cola company. They own the brand, they develop the product. On the other side of the chain, we have actually the bottlers. And the bottlers' job is very simple. It's about making sure that the product ends up in the hand of the consumer. So what we do is actually we are producing, delivering, negotiating the placement of our product in the different point of sales. So what it means in Japan, we are talking about delivering every year 500 million cases of Coca-Cola and associated products. We are to roughly 1 million point of sales, being like mainly vending machine, more than 700,000 and 200,000 outlets. This is made possible by actually a huge network and a bunch of people. We're talking about like 17 plants, a lot of distribution center, a lot of employees, a lot of trucks. So when people see actually the Coca-Cola brand, the red brand, Well, there are the fancy people, the brand people, and then the blue collars like I am. But what it means that actually we need for CCBGI to actually leverage digital to make it, to help us to sell more. And I really like what Rafael was saying. Let's make sure that you understand what are your key KPIs and what kind of problem you're trying to solve. And I would like to share during this presentation what kind of like problem we are trying to solve. But let me go first to your initial question. And sorry, David, I think I'm trying to paraphrase what you were asking. Is like COVID led actually the digital transformation at CCBGI, and what are we doing about it? And maybe closing with, okay, how do you build some kind of digital backbone and muscle? And a lot of that will actually hopefully resonate well with what Mario and Rafael were saying. So before answering the first question, I think I really like the introduction of Rafael. Say you need to think long term and you need to think short term. And it's not because of the COVID that suddenly you need to do digital transformation. I actually believe that those who are just starting the digital transformation now, just because of COVID, they have a problem because they don't know exactly what kind of problem they're trying to solve. Why I'm saying that is just, it starts first by actually understanding, observing the sign of change. And just want to share with you, over the last 5 years, I haven't seen a business day like the previous one. Every single day that you like read a newspaper, you will hear about technology, about AI, about how smart competition is, or they're using, actually in the case of Century, or they're using AI to actually produce their beer. You will see actually all retailers or customers to start to partner with big companies like Aeon and Hokkaido, the online retail group, or Walmart and Rakuten. I mean, lately we have actually Yahoo, SoftBank, and Naver Group like coming all together to create potentially what I believe will be a super app in Japan. And this is going on and on. You have like the regulator, which is trying to push actually cashless payment, and then CVS and convenience store are like starting also to play a role. And beyond that, you have academia who give their own ideas, the METI or other like consultants. The question is, there are all these signs all around. Are we able to listen to them? And if we're not, we get disrupted. I think that digital transformation is actually to be able to prevent that disruption. Is to be ahead of the curve, so you are ready to serve better your business objective. And I just give you an example. In 2017, 20% of actually consumer expense were done by credit card. 2019, 20% of actually Japanese have actually used a payment app, which 2 years before was not existing. And by the way, this chart which I'm sharing with you is actually, I've actually crafted in January this year, and it's not accurate anymore because actually Origami Pay doesn't exist anymore. It has been acquired by MailPay. And I believe at one point of time, maybe PayPay and LinePay will come together, and who knows what happened next. But what I do know is that although like in 2017, only 20% of the expense were done by credit cards, I've read last week that actually Japan is running out of credit cards number. As a consequence, now people are trying to figure out how to actually give new credit card to people, maybe with adding in like a new digit to the credit card number, with a potential cost of between 10 and 100 billion yen. This is what I mean when I'm talking about digital transformation. There are signs around us. How do you prepare for the unknown? And most of this unknown like driven by technology. For CCBGI, is the COVID led the digital transformation? I don't believe so. Actually, in a way, we were lucky because CCBGI is actually a very young company. It has been created like 3 years ago in 2017. It was actually the merge of like multiple small bottlers. And during that process, we as CCBGI recognized that technology was to play a bigger role. And we also took actually the opportunity to change the way we were willing to operate in the future. We were trying to answer 5 different questions. how to better engage online, how to better engage offline. Most of our business today is actually offline. It's through vending machine. It's through actually the retail shop. It's not through online. Yes, we need to, strive on online, on e-commerce, on Amazon. Yes, we need to talk to actually our people through Line, Twitter, whatever. But most of the actually bottles that are bought are done offline. You've seen that we have a large workforce. We want to make sure that these people are working better, selling better, operating better. We have a huge supply chain, a lot of factories. How do we better produce and deliver? And finally, this is a huge and very complex organization. How do we make sure we have the right data at the right time to make the better decision? For me, digital transformation or innovation in digital transformation is actually a journey of solving business problems through technology and uncertainty. So a lot of our initiative and transformation project that we have, some of them are very like digital embedded. And by the way, I'm not talking here about another dimension, which is not yet a priority, but is like, how do we reinvent our business, which is even more forward-looking. Just want to share two small cases. One, which is actually the case of Cocan. And it's a way to actually engage consumer at the vending machine. As you've seen, 700,000 vending machines. We are actually the biggest retailer of Japan, if you count by number of outlets. And all of these outlets are unmanned. You hear about actually different experience of actually have like Amazon Go and so on. But I mean, let's be fair. We've been doing that for more than 50 years already. But what about the experience? Our vending machine haven't changed that much since the 60s. So how can we create a new experience for consumers? And it started as a pilot 5 years ago. First, it was the idea of like, okay, let's create a media channel. We created an app. It was sexy, trendy at the time. It's a way to actually promote a product. It actually evolved also as a loyalty card, where the idea was just to say, we want to bring traffic back to vending. Why? Because actually it's one of our cash cow for us. So by offering like stamps, drink stamps, we were building loyalty, but we also aiming to bring traffic, which we knew will actually bring more sales. And from there, we moved to consumer management, a little bit like what Raphael was saying. Okay, now we have actually data. Oh, we can observe that some people are actually have one coffee today, but normally they should have 3 based on other market research. How can we actually get those 2 others? What kind of program? How can we incentivize the consumer to come back? Some we see based on their purchasing behavior, they are on the edge of like leaving us. Can we reactivate them? And I said the kind of programs that really develop. We try to actually enhance actually the experience with some gamification, with some. We were lucky to be the Olympic sponsor this year and next year, and will activate and leverage actually the assets. Also, now we're moving into enhancing the experience like more frictionless, which is actually contactless payment. It seems natural. And when you look to actually the app today, you have like the main payment app like PayPay, LinePay, Rakuten Pay, and order to come. But I want to share you a story. In end of 2018, I was sitting with the vending team, and I was just telling guys, we need to go into like cashless payment. We need to go activate QR code payments. And people were laughing at me. 2 months later, PayPay was announcing a partnership with Yahoo and entering actually the Japanese market. A few months later, they had to spend hundreds of millions of yen in actually acquiring new consumers. Obviously, today the story is obvious. We need to have like cashless payment, but just like 2 years ago, it was not the case. And yes, COVID in this case actually accelerate the delivery of actually contactless payment. Another case is actually how to support our sales force to grow our customer business. we claim to deliver happiness moment, both for our consumer and our customer. So by customer, I mean actually a retailer. Raphael was talking about empathy. So we need to understand what are the real needs of our customer, or of my store manager, of my buyer, what they really want to achieve, and how can I help them? What we knew is that having more efficient workforce on the field, meaning being at the right place at the right time, having the right information so they can actually make the right proposal, offer them advice, was actually key to make them more successful. So what we built is actually like a Salesforce tool, kind of tablet with a kind of interface, which actually provides set boot management. We redefine actually the processes and we enforce it through GPS. I can tell you that actually, after GPS tracking, route compliance is skyrocketing. People are at the right place at the right time and serving the right customer. In the past, people were divided by all type of calls of small customers. We were missing actually the point. Another example is about understanding customer profile and needs. We have been leveraging big data and actually collect a lot of external data and merge it with our own data to come with better prospect targeting. So now, actually, people understand what are like the key customers to visit, and the conversion rate has actually increased. What does it mean? It means not only are we converting more customers, that means actually people have more time to do something else. Another thing is, like, as we build this, we build it as a platform. So it comes with an additional feature. Each feature is actually reinforcing each other. Team communication. I have a great example. We've launched like augmented reality application to support sales, working very well. But beyond, I don't want to talk about that only. I want to talk about now that because of the chatting function, people are sharing their own best practice. And this is made visible to everyone and creating a virtual cycle, reinforcing the ability of people to sell some product or some placement. And finally, there's also performance analysis. So when I'm thinking about innovation and digital transformation, I like to think about a body. I want just to say it's a business transformation. So you need a brain. You need actually to make sure that you know what kind of problem you're trying to solve. And I also believe that you need to have like the sponsorship of the top leadership. If you don't have it, you will make it, but that will not be a transformation. It will be just improvement, incremental improvement, because you need to be bold sometimes. It is to be consumer focused or follower, and I have on purpose mentioned follower, not only consumer centric, which is kind of like common theme, but follower. You need to be able actually to recognize that the consumer behavior is changing, and therefore you need a soul. By soul, I mean that you need to develop these traits, these human traits, which are empathy, creativity. These are key to actually connect with your consumer, customer, user, whatever is the end game for you. I like to think also about innovation and digital transformation as being like tech and data enabled. I'd like to say this is the backbone. Actually, I could just say that the technology is the backbone. Actually, the data is your blood. But if you don't have like a proper support there, you won't be able to scale it up. So think about it, buy it, build it. I would actually argue that build the core, buy the accessory. I think personally that data is the core. Some actually tech stack are also core. Innovation and digital transformation, Mario was saying it, is like it's evolving. It's involving an uncertain time and environment. What does it mean? Agility, learning should be actually your DNA. the company DNA, not like the team at each level. It's a culture thing, it's a mindset thing. You need to actually help people to become agile. And agile in the concept, as either Mario or Raphael was saying, like starting with version 1, you have like a prototype, and then you like a pilot, and then or a POC, then a pilot, then you scale it up, and then you believe it's finished, but it's starting again. And excuse me 1 second, because my son is like, just wait a second.
This is so typical of the new situation, isn't it?
Well,
wouldn't have happened in the office, would it?
Yeah. Although I'm closing the door for this one, no, still like knocking the door, like things that people don't understand, and they rightfully do so. So, but I was just saying, well, this is actually the DNA. So, well, the culture, agility, a learning culture. You don't know what you don't know. You will never stop learning. It is to be end to end. This is your muscle or your heart. It's your teams. It's the teams, and I believe very much in cross-functional teams. It's very rare to have all the capability in one place. And this is not common in Japan. I mean, actually, it's not common anywhere, but I think it's actually, for me, it's even less common in Japan. And finally, what I just want to say, the transformation has a multiplicator effect. You need to think about platform. It's a kind of like nervous system. Everything you do will actually reinforce the other. Yeah, that's what actually I would like to say about innovation and digital transformation. Maybe because you asked me, David, a question. Who really led actually the digital transformation at CCBJI? Yes, well, let's be honest, it's still COVID, despite whatever I say, because we have actually delivered 14,000 laptops and 17 smartphones. And we start to actually work on workspace, flex workspace and digital interaction. No, Teams is known by anyone in the company. But what I mean is that, yes, COVID and other kind of crises will act as actually trigger. You need to leverage them to accelerate your transformation. But back again, you need to know what you want to do, what kind of problem you're trying to solve. Otherwise, it would just be a gimmick. Well, I think that closed my speech, David.
Thank you, Terry. Right on. It's perfect timing. Thank you, gentlemen. So let's if you guys have a little bit of time, let's try and get a couple of the questions that were asked during the meeting while you're speaking. So we got Doina has asked, can I know if you have any budgetary constraints in implementing some of the innovative strategies you mentioned? Have you done any digital literacy surveys in the organization? How was the process? Because I know in a lot of the questions that people asked all the way through were about budgeting, and so that's kind of a big question. Anybody want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a budget nerd. I actually find it a really, really powerful tool. So a couple of points on this. First of all, as a digital leader, you absolutely have to maintain the integrity of your project. It's your job, nobody else's. And so when you take a business case to an investment committee or execs or whatever it is, your budget needs to include what you believe is required for the project to be successful, which in my case would imply several iterations post-launch, would imply analytics. Still, a number of projects get released where analytics is expected to be added as a separate process later on somebody else's dime. I get genuinely worked up and frankly upset when that happens. And I think when you get a sense of what your organization is capable of spending on a particular project, you need to have an approach that is pragmatic. You can't just go and say, well, okay, I think we intend to spend $1 million on this. Well, I think we should spend $1.5 million because we need iterations post-launch. Well, that's not going to go anywhere. And there's a image that I came across a few years ago of the cakes. You absolutely want the wedding cake. You want all of it and the several layers. But if you can't afford it, you do not want one layer of wedding cake. You want what you can afford, but a complete cake. You want a birthday cake, if that's what you can afford. And if you can't afford that, get yourself a cupcake. But don't get yourself the crust. That's not good. That's not a cake. That's a component. That doesn't get you anywhere. You want to maintain the cohesive, complete version of the project you were trying to bring to market. And again, as a digital leader, it's your job to make sure that all of the components that you think are vital are covered in the budget.
That's great. Thank you, Raphael. James asked a question to Mario. Do you consolidate digital tools across different countries? And if so, do you find some countries pushing back on the consolidation? How do you encompass other countries' needs and concerns into the global solution?
Yeah, so thank you for raising this pain point. I personally dislike globalized tools unless they have to be centralized. For example, I don't know, a central server system, right? So CMS, in most cases and in most iterations, we have a global solution. We have multiple global solutions, obviously, but some markets are more involved than others. And as a global organization, that's my pure view. BAT actually, I'm pretty positive they are against that. But honestly speaking, I believe that if there is a market that is more evolved than the others, companies should scale the market solution and roll it over to the others. Because if in an organization you have the HQ and then you have one country that performs much better on, let's say, on digital, right, on e-commerce, I don't want the HQ to decide my CMS tool. I don't want the HQ to decide my e-commerce tool. I want to be able to deliver, to keep on delivering the way I am. And I would like to see that the HQ is actually absorbing my my tool, which may be CMS or order management system, payment system, whatever, and roll that out to the other markets.
Okay. And got it. And then Terry, we had a question for O2O or from Emily. O2O or OMO, which is seen as the future?
Oh, wow. Well, I think personally, there's like personal opinion. I still believe that offline will be there. Well, or maybe I will be dead. Because I don't want to go beyond that. But I personally believe that there will be this back and forth because everything brings some kind of experience, and you need to just put yourself in this. I mean, just think about yourself. How do you actually choose your apparel, your next dress, the next t-shirt? Yes, for socks and like for underwears, who cares? But there are like things which are actually you are actually emotionally linked to that. So I still believe that there will be the offline world. It will be evolving. And I don't know then where we are going, but I can tell that I was placing IoT equipment in supermarket to better understand how actually the consumer behavior was working, what was like the uptake communicating actually directly from my display to the cell phone of my shopper. Actually, in that sense, China is very well advanced in the Coca-Cola system. They have actually these displays. You have like WeChat, and becoming starting to talk to you and tell you this is a great promotion. But I still believe in offline.
Okay. Raphael, Mario, hey.
I agree. Yeah.
Is that sells burgers. You can't have those online. You can order.
You don't know
online.
that, Raphael. You don't know that.
I assure you, that tastes better
yes.
in meat space. But I think Terry's point is absolutely correct, and Mario, I'm sure this is where you land as well. None of those things work without the rest. I've worked in a business that was pure digital. Gaming, mobile gaming, that is a pure digital thing. Your transactions are online, your interactions with consumers are online, sure. But still, we organize conventions and like people still want to meet. And as far as my current business is concerned, I lead people to a transaction online, but then it gets completed in physical space, whether at their homes or in my restaurant. After they've eaten, I ask them for feedback, and that happens online. So I don't know which abbreviation is correct for this, but definitely we go from online to offline and from offline to online back again. I think, though, that what's important is to figure out where digital technology is capable of enhancing the brand experience, the consumer experience, making things different for people, making things better, frankly. More digital in itself is not a value. And I think in that sense, I agree with Terry.
Yeah. Also because if I may continue what Raphael and Terry said, right now the main differentiators are price and convenience. But as long as the consumer experience stays different, I believe that both offline and online will stay separate. Close, yes, but they will keep on being separated.
Great. Well, we've run a bit over tonight, but I want to thank Raphael, Mario, Terry. Very insightful.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I want to thank everybody who joined in tonight. We had a great crowd. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar we'll have this month. If you want to find out what's going on, please go to the Focus Core LinkedIn page. We have the information there. You can go to my UR code and follow there. And also, someone asked a question about hiring in digital space or looking for a career. You can reach out to me on that one. I can help you. There has definitely been an uptake in the last 4 or 5 months on digital roles in the world. Boy, it's changing in Japan, so that's great. So thank you, the three of you. Wonderful job, very insightful.
Thank you.
And have a great night, everybody. Be safe.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, Raphael. Bye, Terry. Bye, David.
Bye.